get mad.
So whatever you make up, nobody can.
That's for the whole thing or just that phase?
What sounds password?
Jurors, please take your seats. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury for Thursday, September 1st, 2016. We ask that you please stand by for the invocation by Ms. Trimmy and the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Hunter.
Let's pray. Most humble and gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight asking you to be with those that have been hit with this flood here in Louisiana, all 20 parishes, but we know that it's affecting us all. Be with each one of them to be able to get through this tragedy one day at a time, and we also praise those that have come to help. Be with them that are in the water and picking up the trash. Be with us tonight, Lord, as we do your work. Be with Calcasieu Parish. Be with those that are believing and going to. I know this sounds minor, but we want everybody to get to Wisconsin safe and back home. And we love you here, Lord. We are people that love others, and we are so blessed. We ask all of these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Harris.
Here.
Mr. Gray.
Here.
Collins.
Here.
Mr. Farnum.
Here.
Mr. Guidry.
Here.
Mr. Guillory.
Here.
Mr. Hunter.
Here.
Mr. Latour.
Here.
Ms. Mayo. Here. Vice President McMillan.
Here.
Mr. Scott.
Here.
Mrs. Trimmy. Here. Mr. White.
Here.
President Landry.
Here.
Everyone's present.
Thank you, Ms. Catherine. Before we get started, we ask that everyone please silence their cell phones. Also, if you wish to speak on any item on the agenda tonight, that you fill out a blue slip you'll find at the front of the room here and turn it in to someone at the staff desk. Item 4, appearance by Mr. Scott Angel, candidate for the 3rd Congressional District.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I appreciate the opportunity to come by and say hello. I saw many of you earlier this week as you hosted the Region 7 police jury meeting, and I might say you did an incredible job. There was a lot of folks who enjoyed being in a world-class city and enjoying some of the entertainment and the food, and an opportunity to learn about the issues facing our state. And Ms. Sandy, thank you for that offering of prayer. Although Calcasieu is not severely impacted by some of this flooding, certainly there's a lot of folks across Louisiana that are, and certainly appreciate you mentioning that in that opening prayer. I'm here to obviously introduce myself to those of you who do not know me as a candidate for the 3rd Congressional District, which is a district that starts on the east in St. Mary Parish, comes basically down I-10 and Highway 90 all the way to the state line, including the parishes of Calcasieu and Cameron. I'm excited about the opportunity to work with you, having sat in your chair as a local government official for 16 years, 12 years as a member of a police jury, and 4 years as a parish president. I understand firsthand that you are the front line, the first line of defense when it comes to providing the services that our constituents so desperately need. And while some may say in local government it's important to have a congressman that you know, I think it's more important to have a congressman that knows you. Because at the end of the day, you are providing the information up from the bottom up to folks in Washington, and I want to continue my relationship with you as we seek to solve the problems here in Louisiana. I had a great time with you, as I said earlier. Earlier this week, I also spent time over at McNeese University with Dr. Williams. Today, I was on the campus of Suella, and I know we have students from Suella here, so I congratulate them for participating. And this is where you will see good government. I'm not so sure you see it everywhere you go, but at Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, you do see it. So thank you for that opportunity. I'm going to continue to work over the next 70 or so days to introduce myself as we move forward to an historical election on November the 8th. So thank you for that opportunity, and certainly looking forward to visiting with you more as we get across the campaign trail. Tonight's not a night for a policy speech, but I certainly would encourage you to find us on our website and find out, and to the degree that you need me to meet with you about issues, whether they're traffic, or whether they're coastal restoration, or whether they're workforce development, or all the kind of things that are important. I'm absolutely excited about the opportunity. I'm fully energized. I had a great run last year, but the good Lord had other plans. He closed the door, and I found that when the good Lord closes doors, He opens windows. And being from Breaux Bridge, I know how to crawl through windows, so we're gonna work with we're gonna work with her. So thank y'all very much. I'm excited, Mr. President, to answer any questions. I'm not so sure that's the appropriate forum to do it, but certainly would offer that.
We have any questions from any of the jurors?
Thank y'all so much. Good to
Good.
see y'all. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Ms. Nigel. Item 5, presentation by Mr. Gray Stream and Mr. Mark McMurray, representing the Board of Directors of the National Hurricane Museum and Science Center. Mr. McMurray, you would state your name and address for the record, please. 122 Vine Street. You did move in with
Yeah,
Charlie
Buddy
whenever you
Charlie.
retired.
Mark McMurray, 210 Pecan Street, Sulphur. Thank you for your time this evening. Gray and I wanted to come after several months of bruises being healed. You know, we had our election in April after coming here and gaining your support for the vote, and we got whipped pretty badly. 80-20 is one of the worst tax elections that I've experienced in my career. But we want to thank you. One of the reasons we're here tonight is to thank you for your support. That probably kept it from being 90-10. We also wanted to be able to convey to you that, I know Brian is aware of this, but we wanted to be able to say to you that within the last several weeks, we gave a check for over $106,000 to the parish to cover the cost of the election, so that no taxpayer money went into in any of the election costs. And we wanted to make sure that that was publicly stated so people recognize that. The other thing we would like to do tonight, I'm going to ask Gray to come forward. Gray Stream is the president of our board, is to talk to you about some of our discussions over the past several months, and in looking for any path forward from this point. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask Gray to come forward and convey some of those thoughts.
Mr. Stream, if you would just state your name and address for the record, please.
Gray Stream, 3965 South Blue Sage, Lake Charles. Would like to reiterate what Mark said, and won't take too long because tonight wasn't meant to be a major agenda item, but primarily to check in after several months. We did take a pretty good little whipping on that tax election, but really appreciate the vision and support of our leadership here in the region and in the parish. Thanks for giving us that opportunity to get smoked. And as Mark said, we did want to make sure that everyone on the jury knew, and that in a public environment we could just reinforce the fact that we have been given a shot and some great support from visionary leaders, and that the NHMSC's dollars had paid for that election and not taxpayers. Where we are at this point is we checked in with kind of all of our major partners and financial and strategic around the country and otherwise, and they've reinforced their support. So our major strategic alliances with agencies, researchers, our major funding sources, corporate and state, have all reaffirmed a very strong support. On the other hand, internally, we don't take that support for granted, and nor do we want to lose momentum. There was a great deal of momentum that was built over the past couple of years, and was part of the catalyst behind really trying to close the gap very quickly this past spring. So while we have stepped back and are working with our consultants and our architects to assess kind of what our opportunities are at this point, it won't be a kind of a forever process of figuring that out. I think that our goal is by the end of the year to be able to come back out publicly and start to answer the question that we get very frequently, you know, where are things now and where are things going, as I said, that it's tended to come along with a very still humbling amount of support and encouragement. The options basically come down to stay the course, which, you know, I won't sort of spoil things, but, you know, I think we're questioning that very vigorously and working through those, but trying to gather information around these, again, with our consultants and architects, or try kind of a phase-in approach, which, of course, was a concept that we were already working with. And ultimately, you know, just making sure and reassessing that it's, you know, doable and responsible to try to do so. So this past time around, if as we continue to move forward in whatever fashion, we should clearly do a better job of communicating the value proposition to the public, and would make sure that we did so. But ultimately, the point was to give a brief update to say thank you from the support that we got this past spring, the ability to at least make that attempt, and just to reaffirm that it was much appreciated and that we were you know, happy to make sure that the taxpayer didn't pick up the bill for that. Thank you. And if
Thank
you have any
Mr.
questions.
Stream. Yeah, I think we do. Mr.
Okay.
McMillan?
Gray, I was in the 20%. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'll be in another whatever percentile if you bring it back up, because it was a value proposition. It was a great idea. It'd been something that would have been a major impact to Southwest Louisiana, our region, and our part of the state right here. I'm hoping maybe when the federal government congressmen get elected or whatever, maybe they'll look at funding some money, because this is truly needed. The National Hurricane Museum will be located in Southwest Louisiana, with Corpus all the way to the Keys the other way, was a perfect middle spot. It was the right thing, and we got the place on the lake to do it. It's a beautiful proposition. I'm just hoping that the people, you know, time and what we do and a lot of things really makes a difference. We just had some really bad issues with the state and the way the money was and things that were going on, and the timing was bad. I hope if it's on life support system, I'll be the first one there to give CPR. I hope that you bring this back. I hope that someday this gets built for my grandkids to be there to see this museum. So please don't give up. Thank you for what you've been doing, Mark, you and Ray both, and the entire committee of people that y'all have together, some of the best of the best. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Stream, Mark. I too was part of that 20%, and I still believe that one day we'll see that museum here. You know, most of the time when you hear the word hurricane, you always think about what it did and the disaster that it brought. Well, like you said, you took a pretty good beating with this hurricane tax. But it's what you do after that that shows the resiliency of a community. So now you've learned some lessons, you've got some different thought processes, and I believe that by planning and continuing to stay the course, that museum will be built here one day. So don't lose heart, stay at it, and if you want to pay another $106,000 one day to try it again, we're all for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott. Is there any other questions from any of the jurors? Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Item 6 is 6 o'clock action. We'll come back to that. Item 7, take appropriate action on applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
Mr. President, we have one application before you tonight. We recommend that it be approved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Guidry and a second by Mr. Barris. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 8, consideration of approving payment of all current invoices. I have a motion by Mr. Anderpont, second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 9, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated August 4, 2016. I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Collins. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 10, consideration of approving the parish-wide drainage liaison committee report dated August 25th, 2016. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Parish-wide Drainage Liaison Committee met on Thursday, August 25th at 4 p.m. to receive a progress report from staff on its drainage management study efforts. Public Works Director Alan Wainwright presented a proposed set of policies that would be used to develop ordinances relating to drainage standards for development or redevelopment within the parish. The policies pertain to items such as water surface elevation profiles, sludge storage volumes, and freeboard standards within the parish. The staff also discussed proposals on how drainage capital projects would be prioritized and the recommendation to establish a Calcasieu Drainage Coalition that would ensure good interaction between the parish, cities, and drainage districts on important issues. All of the information that was presented is available on the parish's website, and we're seeking public comments on these proposals through September 16th. This concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you for your report. Mr. Scott, we had a motion by Mr. White and a second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any further discussion? Any questions, anything? You sure? With that, motion carries. Item 11, consideration of approving the Public Works Committee report dated August 25th, 2016. Mr. Farnum.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Works Committee met on August 25th, 2016 to deliberate the following items. Item A, presented certificates to the players and coaches of South Lake Charles Little League Baseball team in recognition of winning a 2016 state championship and advancing to the semifinal games of the Southwest Regional Tournament in Waco, Texas. Item B, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving a cooperative endeavor agreement between the police jury and the city of Lake Charles for the overlaying of Evergreen Avenue and East Prion Lake Road. Item C, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving active sale agreements for the Tank Farm Road Site Distance Project in Ward 3. Item D, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an active sale agreement for the Coach Williams Drive Extension Project in Ward 4. Item E, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an active sale agreement for the Coach Williams Drive Extension Project in Ward 4. Item F, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an active sale agreement for the Coach Williams Drive Extension Project in Ward 4. Item G, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving the parish's participation in the federal off-system bridge rehabilitation and replacement program agreement with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development. These are all the items. They all met with full approval, and my motion would be to accept.
Move on item 11, all bullets, please.
Thank you, Chairman Farnum. We have a motion by Mr. Farnum, second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 12, consideration of approving the Agenda Committee
Second.
report dated August 25th, 2016. I have a motion by Mr. Guillory, a second by Mr. Scott. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 13, consideration of adopting a resolution approving the renewal of a cooperative endeavor agreement between the police jury and the State of Louisiana Department of Natural Resources for the 2016-2017 Calcasieu Parish Local Coastal Program. That program has been in place since
Move on
1986.
13.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Scott, second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 14, consideration of adopting a resolution approving the submittal of the Human Services Housing Program Annual Public Housing Agency Plan for fiscal year 2016-2017. Have a motion by Ms. Mayo, second by Mr. Collins. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 15, take
Move on
appropriate
15,
action
all
on bids
bullets.
received by the parish purchasing agent for the following. A, River Bluff Phase 2B project. Includes the restrooms, playground, and parking. The project architect recommends that the low bid in the amount of $3,058,000 of Miller and Associates Development Company, Inc. be accepted. Was that on all bullets? Or we're just doing one? All bullets, okay. B, crushed stone. C was for hot mix. D, metal signpost. E, ready mix concrete. Have a motion by Mr. White, second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 16, take appropriate action on the terms of the following members of various boards and districts. A, Ms. Carrie Vick, Community Center and Playground District Number 7 of Ward 2.
Mr. Latour.
I'd like to defer for 30 days.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Latour to defer for 30 days and a second by Mr. Hunter. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Hunter.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. B, Mr. Kenneth R. Cochran, Waterworks
Move to
District
reappoint.
Number 4 of Ward 4.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. McMillan to reappoint and a second by Mr. Latour. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. C, Mr. Tim Aguilar,
reappoint.
Waterworks District Number 1 of Ward 1. I have a motion to reappoint by Mr. White and a second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. D, Mr. Ronald R.
Move
Harmon,
to
Ward
defer
1
30
Fire
days.
Protection District Number
Second.
1. I have a motion by Mr. White to defer by 30 days, for 30 days, and a second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. E, Mr. Ronnie Bowers, Waterworks District Number
Second.
11 of Wards 4 and 7. I have a motion by Mr. Anderpont to reappoint and a second by Mr. Barris. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. F, Mr. Johnny Louvier, have a resignation from the Ward 7 Fire Protection
Move to
District
appoint
Number
Mr. Harold
1.
Pickett Jr.
I have a motion by Mr. Barris to appoint Mr. Harold Pickett Jr. and a second by Mr. Collins. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. G, Mr. Stephen Smith, Ward 7 Fire Protection District Number 1.
Move to reappoint.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Barris to reappoint and a second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. H, Mr. Keith Henson, it's a resignation from the Southwest Louisiana
appoint
Convention and Visitors Bureau. I have a motion by Ms. Trimmy to appoint Mr. Paul Hutchins and a second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. I think Mr. Hutchins is with us tonight. There he is. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you for being here. Item 17, consideration of adopting a resolution of condolences to be forwarded to the family of the late Rebecca Becky Mitchell. Mr. Brame.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Brame, second by Mr. Hunter. Mr. Brame.
Thank you, Mr. President. Becky and Jim were good friends of Paul and I. We're gonna miss Becky, and I just ask that y'all lift Jim up in your prayers. He's just a great guy. If y'all know Jim Mitchell, I've known him for many years. I have never heard him complain about anything. So he's doing good, but I just ask that y'all lift him up in your prayers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Brame. All right, we had a motion and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 18, consideration of adopting a resolution of condolences to be forwarded to the family of the late Jerry Wise.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Trimmy and a second by Mr. Scott. Ms. Trimmy.
Yes, I'd like to say a few things about Jerry Wise, a very close friend of mine for many years. He owned the DeQuincy News and he owned the Cameron Pilot. His brother Urban at one time owned the Southwest Daily News and about 30 other papers around the state. So they've been in the newspaper business for many years. Jerry was I guess one of the pioneers. He was with the Louisiana Press Association for over 50 years. And he also served, we served together at the DeQuincy Rotary Club, at the DeQuincy Chamber of Commerce. Now, the Supper Club, I wasn't involved in that, but I bet they had a good time. He's also a member of the DeQuincy Masonic Lodge, which my dad and also my father-in-law belong to. But one of the things he really enjoyed doing, I think one of the most important things that he really loved, was being a member of the Calcasieu Parish Library Board. And that was one of the things that he told me, that he just felt like it was just something really special. And I think all the people that do serve on that board feel the same way. We have a wonderful library system here in Calcasieu Parish. We're blessed. And we have board members that take it very seriously. So Jerry was one of them. So I just want to let you know that I appreciate y'all allowing me adding this to the agenda tonight, since we weren't going to meet next week, and it was going to be kind of a long time away before I could talk about Jerry. I do want to say one or two more things. He was the Grand Marshal of the DeQuincy Railroad Festival, and y'all know I pushed my festival. We love the DeQuincy Railroad Days Festival. So those are some of the things that I just wanted everybody to be aware of, that that Jerry Wise was a very, very, very special person. He was also, and the last thing I do want to say is he was a member of the Methodist Church in DeQuincy, United Methodist Church, and extremely active in his church life also. So I know that, that he's with the Lord now, and that all of our times will come. But for the family of the Wises, I ask for you to pray for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trimmie. He's a great man. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, we'll go ahead and go to item 19. Please review the item printed below for your consideration. The chair will entertain a motion to suspend the rules to allow this item to be added to the agenda.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. Gilrey. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Are there any comments from the public on adding this item to the agenda? Any comments from the public on adding this item to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll now vote on the motion to suspend the rules to add this item to the agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item number 1, consideration of adopting a resolution approving the submittal of an application and sponsor agreement between the Police Jury's Human Services Department and the Louisiana Department of Education for the Family Daycare Home Food Program for fiscal year 2016-2017, and further authorizing the president of the police jury, his designee, when appropriate, to execute all documents related thereto. Had a motion by Mr. Farnham and a second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion on the floor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President, we have a couple of minutes, I know, before your hearing. With your,
Yep.
I appreciate it if you give a second, maybe to have Alberto Galan come up. Alberto, as some of you may know, teaches
We were going to do
an
that.
American government class. Oh, I didn't know y'all had spoken.
We had that planned.
It's not unusual. I'm the last to know in my office. So,
No, that's all right. Come on up,
but we have a
Alberto.
minute, I thought.
Good idea. Come up, Alberto. Tell us what you do when you're not here. Well, not everything, just related to Sewella.
We know
All
you
right,
smoke.
well, what we have here is some of our students from American Government class at Sewella. And this is only their second class, so they really got to trial by fire here and just told them to come in, open-minded. Probably not going to understand half of what's going on and why people are talking over other people and everything's so confusing, everybody's talking so fast. But they're here just to kind of learn. I figured we'd jump in at the local level before we get into the dirty stuff, the state and the federal government, and then and we'll stay here. We'll hopefully plug the local government as much as we can. As the general public needs to be more aware of a lot of what the services the police juries and the municipalities do for the citizens.
Good deal. Why don't you have them all stand up?
That's what I was gonna ask.
All the students, please stand up.
We'll give them a round of applause here.
We'll give one.
And they do know their juror, just for the record, they do know who.
Very good.
who
Go ahead.
represents-
Are they
Yeah,
going to
which
tell us
one
who
running
they are?
against me?
Let's see.
I'll pay to that one.
Let's start on the end
We'll
with the
start
young
alignment
lady.
in real quick. We'll start over here and just say, which juror up here is the one that represents?
Oh,
Sure, all right.
the best one.
And she
Oh,
was
look at
running-
y'all.
running against you.
I'm sorry. Running for 4 years, 3 years.
The tour again.
Oh, all right.
Bottommost blood people.
I think you have.
I think that's it.
We're
gonna give him coming up in the ranks. Thank you, Alderman.
Very good. Well, thank y'all for having us. I know we may be back, we may not be, but I'll talk highly of you sometimes and sometimes not.
They're always welcome. Thank y'all for coming. Hey, it's now 6 o'clock. We'll go back.
We'll keep you employed.
Let's do really.
Get there.
Can you vote?
Okay. Item 6, hold a public hearing at 6 p.m. as a result of notice provided to the owner of the property described below in accordance with Article 2, Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances of Calcasieu Parish, ordering said owner to show cause as to why the structure on said property should not be condemned. Mr. Robinson, we're glad you're with us.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everybody. The structure is at 1621 Eva Street. This is in the Sulphur area. We have one manufactured home. The owner of record is a Russell Lee Bumgordon. We are recommending this structure be condemned and removed in 30 days.
Move.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Anderpont and a second by Mr. Barris to condemn and remove within 30 days. Mr. Anderpont? Mr. Anderpont?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a matter of information, I got a call from David the other day. They had asked for 60 days, and in the 60 days, no effort had been made to improve or demolish. So he called me, and I said, well, we don't, under the condition, we have no choice but to move forward and to do what he recommended. So, just for the record.
Okay, Mr. Anderpont. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on item A, 1621 Eva Street? Anyone wish to speak on 1621 Eva Street? Did you have further discussion?
I will
Mr.
after
McMillan?
it finishes.
Okay. All right, so we had a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Roberts, if you don't mind, Mr. President.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. McMillan, you have the floor.
I was just wondering, it's a very light condemning this month. Was that a special one, or do you have others coming? I've never seen us just have one. Usually it's 8 to 10 to 12 in condemnations. You just had an off month, or not? People are cleaning up their houses? What's happening?
This is deferred.
No, so this one was deferred for
Okay.
60 days,
I
so
figured it was something like
that's why we had to bring it back up.
Okay.
So there's more coming.
Oh, there's always.
There's always. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. We're going to go ahead, let's go to item 21. It's just an advised item that Senator Ronnie Johns has reappointed Mr. Mark
Move on
Senegal
21.
as a member of the Ward 1 Economic Development Board. We don't need a motion, it's just an advised item. Also, item 22 is another advise of different board appointments that are coming up. We have a person appointed privilege by Mr. Gilry. Go ahead, Mr. Gilry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say, and it's always glad to serve with Mr. Anderpont. Mr. Anderpont was just reelected a few nights ago to the Region 7 Board again as a Region 7 representative, and it's always great to work with you, Mr. Anderpont. He does and represent the area very well. Thank you, Mr. Anderpont.
Thank you, Tony. Your $20 will be given to you right after the meeting. I just want to thank you, the colleagues, and for your support. It's a pleasure and an honor to be elected by 8 parishes to a position that I enjoy working with. And there are eight regions, and of course, being geographically from all over the state, you learn a lot from other areas, and you realize how fortunate we are to live where we live in Southwest Louisiana. I promise you, we have no problems compared to what some of these other parishes have. It's a pleasure to work with Roland Dortez, along with the other members of and his staff, along with the other members who are either elected or appointed to serve on the executive board. As long as I'm there, I assure you that Region 7 and specifically Calcasieu Parish will be represented in the manner that I know that you want to be represented in. And again, thank you for your your support, your vote of confidence. It means a whole lot to me. Now yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Anderpont, thank you for your service. I wondered why he didn't call me back, because I told him I'd do it for $50. You left some money on the table. We're gonna have to get together and work
Next
that
time we
out.
get together on it.
Yeah, that's not good. Also, while we're on that subject, I just want to thank the staff on behalf of the
Yes,
entire jury.
yes.
Y'all did
Very
a great,
beautiful job.
great job.
A lot of hard work and everything, very beautiful job.
We had one non-staff member there, Miss Buffkin's daughter, and she did an excellent job as well. I know you should be very proud, and I know that you are a nice young lady.
Can I say something on that, Chris?
Go ahead, Mr. Gill.
I was just gonna say it was one of the largest attended meetings that I've ever gone to have that many people. So thank you all, and it was a beautiful job.
174th,
One of the
that's
largest
a
ones.
big one, that's good. Very good, well done. Item 20, consideration of going into executive
Move to
session
go
to
into
discuss
executive session.
Phyllis Shelton versus Calcasieu Parish Police Jury. I have a motion by Mr. Anderpont and a second by Mr. Hunter. We are now in executive session.
Yours.
Move to receive report.
Okay, I got a motion to receive
Second.
report by Ms. Mayo, second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion?
Move to adjourn.
Objections, hearing none, motion carries. I have a motion by Mr. Anderpont to adjourn and a second by Mr. Farnum. We're adjourned.